Hello, 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 and welcome to Straight Grown Talk. Today we have an exciting show, and I have two wonderful co hosts. But before I introduce our co hosts, we're going to talk about that this show is going to be about domestic violence. Again, this is a subject and a topic that is very dear to me because a lot of women tend to talk about it or don't talk about it because of the shameness of it. So stay tuned for the show as we are going to get more into details. But before we get into the show, I want to say thank you for everyone that came out and supported Level Up. I want to thank all of the speakers and all of the entertainers that came out. I really appreciate it from the very bottom of my heart. I want to also give thanks to all of our sponsors. As you see, they're going across on the board behind me. I want to thank all of those persons as well as for understanding and seeing my vision, because without you, this would not happen. Now, a lot of you want to know what Straight Grown Talk is about. It is a community show. So we take the time to get you, our viewers, educated on topics that we normally would not hear due to just clearly don't have time to listen. But since you're at home or you're out and about with family and friends, it's the perfect time for you to get some knowledge and listen to what these wonderful professionals and people in our community have to say. So right now I'm going to introduce today both of my co-hosts. Woohoo! We're going to start right here with Miss Keisha Fay, K. Fay Westar.
Keanu Fay Westar, Empowerment for the Powerless.
Yes, and
My name is Beverly Verscher, author, motivational speaker, and entrepreneur.
all right, and on our sofa we have
Tamela Coleman. I am a best-selling author, playwright, director, producer, also host of my own show, Spiritually Speaking with Tamela Coleman.
And I'm Jay Wilson. I'm a entrepreneur, a mother, an educator, motivational speaker.
That's a lot. So right now we're going to jump right into Straight Grown Talk. And before we jump right into it, we're going to show you some alarming information.
10 million men and women in the United States are subject to domestic violence every year. "85% of domestic violence victims are females and 15% are male. Nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. Domestic violence, different types of abuse: economical abuse, psychological abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and emotional abuse. And here are some numbers that you can call to get help. Georgia Coalition Against Domestic Violence, the number is 800-334-2836. And in family violence in Georgia, which are shelters, if you need shelter, 800-334-2836. And the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which is a national number, you can call no matter where you are, 512-453-8117.
Now we are back, and right now we're going to talk to some wonderful ladies, and they're going to share with you their stories today. So I'm going to get right into the topic of the day, which is domestic violence. And who want to start first?
Wow.
I told you I was getting ready to jump right into it.
Well, again, my name is Tamela Coleman, and I'm actually just sharing my story. Basically, I've written a book called Unspoken, My Past, My Pain, My Story. And this starts from a journey from the time I was born up until now. And truly, God has been good. He's truly been good, even through all of the things that I had to endure. Most of the time, we don't notice domestic violence. We don't even recognize that it really is domestic violence, because it's always someone that you love or you think that loves you, or someone that's you're familiar with. In my case, I was married, and I was married to an alcoholic. And so it turned into domestic violence. Anytime, and even though he was probably not beating me all the time on a daily basis, he hit me. So that to me is domestic violence. So basically, my family didn't know anything about it. They're just reading my story like the last month.
Oh,
Even
wow.
my mother, I never shared it with even my husband. Now, I never shared it with him or my parents, my children. As a matter of fact, as of yesterday, my daughter is 21, and this is her first time even hearing my story.
Wow.
But it needs to be told, because even prior to me marrying my first husband, I actually was hit by a boyfriend. So it's like it was continuing, and then it continued into my marriage. And basically, my story is that I stayed into the marriage basically because of my children, and that may have been a right and wrong reason, but I did decide that I could not take it anymore. And I do remember asking God, if you get me out of this, I will do whatever you want me to do. So every platform that I use is to his glory and to share my testimony. So now in the last couple of months, well, actually last month, I've actually shared my book, Unspoken, and because it was unspoken words that I never shared with anybody. And my mother, she read the book and she called me one day and she says, "You have me in tears. Why didn't you tell me about this?" And I was like, well, if I told you, then, I just didn't want to tell anybody. I kind of suffered in silence. And so my unspoken is now being spoken. So I'm now sharing my testimony.
Congratulations. 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 What made you, after all these years, finally decide, I have the strength to continue?
Well, actually, I've been a radio host myself. I hear a lot of stories. I was actually listening on the other end to domestic violence, victims. And I was like, wow, I have a story. Why am I afraid to tell it? And so I just began to, actually the story was already in my heart, was already in the motions. The book was in the motions 2 or 3 years ago. And Lord said, it's time for you to tell your story. So that's why I decided to just go ahead and just release it.
Okay. And anyone else want to jump in?
Well, again, I'm Keanu Fay Westar, Empowerment for the Powerless, founder and CEO of Love Yonder Outreach. It's a nonprofit organization for individuals and families affected by domestic violence. I myself am a 2-time survivor of domestic violence. The first one being physical in my marriage, and the second being narcissistic abuse by a previous boyfriend.
So you said narcissist abuse. Can you explain to our audience what that means?
Narcissistic abuse is the epitome of domestic violence. It is a slowly dehumanizing, purposeful soul rape. You don't have to be getting physically hit to be abused. And I just feel it was something that I had to go through in order to take my ministry to another level, because I was teaching domestic violence from the physical abuse that I had gone through, but it's so many people that's being abused narcissistically by a narcissist. And they don't even think, and for me, I was like, well, he's not hitting me. I was just, and I started like, okay, I got to figure out what's going on here, because it just wasn't right. And so once I started to educate myself and look back, I've been with the narcissist the whole time. But if a person's going to hit you, of course they'll talk down on you. But for a person to be ripping you apart and not laying a hand on you, that's something that confused me a lot. And so I went to Google and I started Googling. I was going to bed listening to videos, and I was educating myself on what I was dealing with, and I was pointing it out. And I was like, yeah, this is what this is.
So what gave you the strength to finally tell your story? Because a lot of people don't know it. And then I want you to also explain about this wonderful nonprofit that you have. And if you don't know, it's located all over Atlanta, Georgia. So please look for it. She's plastered everywhere. She does phenomenal work. You see her, she's running just like me all the time, telling people about her nonprofit, getting the story out, helping people that has gone through this herself. So I'm going to let her talk, because I can go on about it.
What made me tell my story was that I knew I had to. Because domestic violence has been around me since I was a little girl. I was 7 years old having to watch my mother be beat bloody. She left, due to drugs when I was 8. But it was just something that I knew I had to talk about after I had gotten myself out of that marriage. And I just started searching, and I was getting older. So I started searching and just asking God, what is it that, what's my purpose? What is it that you want me to do? And I told myself, if I make it to my 35th year of life, I step outside myself and I tell my story. Because for me, I was like, I'm good. I'm not going to do that anymore. But other people needed to know. So in October 9th, 2015, I wrote it. I wrote a synopsis. That's all I give is synopsis, really, because it'll take me too long to tell it all. So I wrote a synopsis on Love Yana Outreach Facebook page.
Repeat that again.
Love Yana Outreach Facebook page. And so I wrote it. I hit send, and I went to the club with my friends. And the next day when I got up, I was like, oh my God. And my best friend was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm looking on Facebook, and it was just over and over, and everybody was just over and over and over. And I'm like, my God. I said, I really didn't say anything. And he was like, well, you said enough. So that impacted me and let me know that it wasn't about me. So I was like, if I could just help one,
You can help the masses.
I'll tell it again and again and again.
That's right. That's right.
Even if your voice shake, tell it. I spoke the other day for Bank of America employees, and shout out to Bank of America for doing a phenomenal job as a corporation, educating their employees and helping. I learned that they've even helped people get temporary housing, move them out of state to save them.
Correct.
So that is amazing. But in that room that day, a lady found her voice. Had never told anyone, but she found her voice that day. I mean, I stopped the panel, everything from talking like, y'all give her a round of applause. Like, she just found her voice here today after 20-some years.
Wow.
Like, I wanted to give the gabs. I talk a lot anyway. And after I got out of it, when I left, I started telling all my friends because I needed people to hold me accountable.
Right.
There you go.
And
that's the key word. You have to, of course, when you go through the process and you start trying to tell your story, when you tell it at one time, you can't just tell it at one time because, again, you might be helping someone else, and that someone else is going to hold you accountable because they need that to go on and move forward to what they're trying to do. So you're right. I'm glad that you was held accountable.
I told
all of us
everybody,
have to be held accountable because without all of us, no one will get an opportunity to hear it, and it might be something that's triggered them. They might be scared, just like you said. You was afraid. She was afraid. I'm quite sure all of us. We have different reasons of why we stay in a relationship that is toxic. For me, it was more so about my kids, an image. I was more so concerned about how would it look. So I had to get out of my own personal feelings about when I get ready to tell everybody, the first thing that's going to happen is my family's going to be like, why you didn't say anything? Why did you keep it quiet? Then an embarrassment comes in and like, it's something you did. No, how about it could have been something he did or that nothing, just blew up for no reason. But again, these are all the excuses of why women are normally stay in an abusive relationship or situation because of things they also go through and their image and their shame and everything to tell their story. But I'm not going to talk that much. I'm going to pass the mic on over to Miss Beverly.
Again, I'm Beverly Verscher, and I actually wrote a book about domestic violence as well. It's called To Love You Again. Because after being in a domestic violence relationship, you do have to learn to love you again.
Oh, boy.
Yes.
And that was something that I had to learn how to do because all those different types of domestic violence, I've been through it. The physical, to me, had gotten to a point where it was just a little bit easier than all the other things at some point. Like the economical abuse, financial abuse, you can't work. If you do work, your money is controlled. And then you can't have friends. You can't be around your family. You can't go anywhere. You're a prisoner in your own home. There's so many things you have to go through. So when you finally get the strength to leave, that's when the real work happens. Right. The physical abuse can be bad. People lose their lives. But the psychological, the mental, the verbal abuse, all those things take much longer to heal. My domestic violence was over 20-something years ago because I've been married for almost 20 now to an amazing man.
And he is here supporting his wife in the studio. So I want to give him a personal shout out for driving her all the way from South Carolina. Thank you very much. And making sure that you guard your precious cargo.
Right.
Thank you.
I myself my security guard.
He is.
Right.
Who's gonna protect me better than him?
That's a blessing.
It
That's a
is.
blessing.
But
That's a blessing.
to get back to that, I partner with my local police department, which I did yesterday. I did an event with them where I go out and I speak and I help them bring awareness. I partner with other advocates and different domestic violence organizations, anywhere that I can. And I just go out and I speak because a lot of times we do focus on people that we've lost, which we should, because last year I lost a friend to domestic violence. And I started my organization, No More Silence, because my friend was killed last year by her boyfriend and never knew I had gone through domestic violence myself. These are people that I'm around all the time, and we're not talking about it. And a lot of us have gone through it.
Yes.
So when I sat and I prayed, I was like, God, I got to do something. I was in my pain from losing a good friend of mine from domestic violence, and I was like, I got to do something. I can't just sit here. I'm writing these books, I'm going out, I'm doing these speeches, I'm doing this, and we never talk about domestic violence, and we're losing people behind it. So as I prayed about it, it just came to me, no more silence. I have to talk about it. And now most of the things that I do when I get asked to speak is about domestic violence. It used to be just like the motivation, how we do the women's conferences and stuff. But I'm like, now I have to talk about domestic violence. We have to take it outside of October, domestic violence.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Because
Domestic
people are
violence
dying every day, and there are
365.
people who are still suffering every day. And so that's just what my mission is now, is just to help people get out of these relationships and let them know there is help. And there's two sides to it. We want to tell the people we love, you got to get out, you got to leave. But we also have to be aware that that's the most dangerous part of the relationship.
Correct.
When you decide to take that power back from your abuser, you're really putting your life and the lives of the people you love in danger.
Correct.
So we have to be careful when we say that. If you make it sound judgmental, because it's not as easy as it sounds, just get up and leave. But you can create a game plan. You can get with some friends, family, or organization, or an advocate and plan it all out to where you can leave safely. Of course, it's not foolproof, because we know some of these abusers will go as far as ending their own life to end yours.
Correct.
We know that.
Correct.
But you'll have a better chance when you tell someone and you create a plan to get out.
That is a true statement. Next. Yes.
Again, I'm Jay Wilson, and my story starts with my daughter. My daughter was 21, and she was murdered by her boyfriend. I didn't see that it was domestic violence, but looking back, I see the signs. I see they were all there, and it was hidden, and it was clear that she was being abused. But growing up, I didn't see domestic violence so prevalent. It was more hidden. But now that I went through this journey, I'm like, oh my gosh, it was all through my family. You've seen it with my aunts and my uncles and stuff like that. But with my daughter, she started out, she hid him at first, and when I finally met this young man, and let me tell you something, you have to be grounded in the word. You gotta be, thank God for my discernment, my spirit of discernment, because when I first met him, my spirit, my inner man said, and me and mommy both.
Momma Tuition.
Yeah, Momma Tuition and Grandmama Tuition, because we both were there at the same time. And so me and mom, as soon as they left out the door to go to the movies and eat, I looked at mommy, she looked at me, and I said, I don't like him. She said, me neither. Right? And then people were like, they're young, you got married young, and they're young, that's puppy love. And I'm like, that's this thing, right? Because we did everything. Every month of the year we did something. Either it was for whatever holiday it was, to family outings, to Sunday dinners. Every Sunday I did Sunday dinner. She started missing those, and oh, mommy, I can't, excuses. I can't come because I didn't wash my hair, or like crazy stuff. Then she disappeared for a while where it was just out of sight, out of mind. And the phone was disconnected, and she would just get a new cell phone, and then a week or 2 weeks later, it's disconnected. And you go past their house because she moved in with the young man.
Oh, wow.
But I called the mother, and I said, "Here, look, check this out." I said, "My baby wants to come over there, but I don't condone that. But I'm gonna go ahead, being that you live there, I'm gonna let her come. But if you see anything strange or weird, you let me know. I'll come get my baby." And so me and my husband, we were at the time, we were just being proactive, trying to knock on the door and see, visit and stuff like that. And no call, no show, no nothing. And months go by, about 6 months go by, and I'm like, this is crazy. She would call every once in a while. "Hi, Mommy, I just been busy. I just been, I'm trying to get just excuses." And then when I would see her periodically, she would have like a bruise here and there, but it was like on her thigh or just places where normally people, like you guys are dressed, like we all dress, we don't see it, but if she would take, her pants off or put shorts on, I'm like, "Oh my God, what happened to your thigh?" She goes, "I fell," which will be a true story because I'm clumsy in a minute. I will trip and fall. And she had that gene, I guess. I don't know. But at this point in time, I believe it was. I believe he was abusing her, but I didn't know. But when it was all said and done, her friends all came to me and said, "Mom, he was hitting her and he was this." And I said, "Don't tell me now. Don't tell me that now."
Yeah, you should have been telling me before
You
that.
should have told me that before.
Right, and in the moment that you saw what's happened, you shouldn't have been quiet. You should have been telling. And I get it. We all tell everybody, don't tell anyone. Please keep it. You know how my mom is. She crazy. Yeah, and I admit I am, but yeah. And I'd rather be.
I'd rather be crazy, right? But the thing is, she told me that. She said, "Mommy, I gotta keep y'all separate." I said, "Why?" She goes, "'Cause I know how you are and I know how he is." I said, "What does that mean?"
Yeah.
I said, "What does that mean?" And I was like, "Girl, whatever." And I just but now I know how to just listen. I learned how to turn this off or, and just listen to those little key words for any and everybody. I don't talk as much like I used to. And she did tell me that. And then, that day I haven't seen her for about like 3 months. And we were in church and the phone rang in church. And so my ex-husband, he's like, "Oh, Tasha's calling." I'm like, "Give me that phone." And I grabbed it in the pew and I bent down. I'm like, "Hey, where are you?" She goes, "Mom, I gotta see you. I gotta see you." And I said, "Okay." And she came on in and she rung the doorbell and I let her in, whatever. She had a black eye. And I'm like, "Wait a minute." That's when it was like, It hit home, like, "Wait a minute. He's doing this to you." So yeah, it became really surreal. And I started taking off my church clothes and my apron because I was cooking and what have you. And then, my ex was like, he was like, don't go in that room because I'm ready to thump now because, from Brooklyn, New York, you ready. You hit your loved ones.
You on 10.
I'm ready. I'm ready, right? So, and he was like, no, wait, let's talk this through. Let's talk it through. And we did. We talked it through. We had plans to go to get, restraining order and all this other stuff. And
She didn't want to go for it.
no, she did. She was ready.
That's
She
good.
said,
That's
"Mommy,
good.
he's been hitting me." And I'm like, "Why you didn't tell me?" She said, "Because he said, like he was threatening her. Like if I were to do something, he will come and hurt us and stuff like that."
Okay.
So, and I said, "Wow, you went through this because you thought that you weren't going to be protected, And, I can't say too much on TV, but you would have been protected. You know what I mean?
Yes.
If you just would have said something. And, but she didn't, and we talked about it, and, we had a beautiful last little few moments. She went on and talked to all her friends, and she just rekindled that relationship with everybody. And, that was my last little moments with her. And can I go into details what happened, or you want to wait for that later?
I'll come back to that.
Okay.
Now, also want to talk about, we have in our studio a young man, and he was on the first domestic violence that I did about a month and a half ago. So this is not the first domestic violence. This is actually part 2. I felt compelled to have the first one when I had it because it is a subject that everyone was talking about or is talking about and should be talking about. I brought it back during Domestic Violence Month only because I wanted to continue what we were talking about the first go round. But again, women are not the only ones that get abused. You also have men. We're very fortunate and blessed to have Mr. Grady here with us that came all the way from Alabama to make sure he came back in time.
Yeah, Memphis,
So
Tennessee.
I appreciate it. Oh, you was
Memphis,
Tennessee? Oh,
yes.
okay. I thought you was. Oh, you was telling me you was in Alabama. This
Alabama at
morning.
the time, yes.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you for flying back to be here.
Yes.
I do appreciate that. Can you shed light of your story?
Wow. Kind of still hurts to talk about it.
Take your time.
Back in '97, around the time Tupac was shot and killed, I was assaulted by my then ex-wife. I was recovering from eye surgery, and I had been hanging out the night before with a friend. And I came home the next day, which I stayed at my mom's house. But I came home the next day, and she thought I was out cheating and stuff like that. So, with my growing up and, watching my stepfather, he never argued. He never hit my mom whenever he did things like that, So, silence is golden. So I guess she was just really just frustrated, and she thought I was lying to her that I was at my mom's house, and which I was. And she struck me and hit me in my eye, but hit me in my left eye. And I immediately called my friend, and he came and picked me up and took me away. And then, shortly after that, I lost, my vision was just still messed up and never really recovered. So I have a total detached retina in my left eye. Wow. So I'm blind in my left eye. And it just really changed my life, It happens with men all the time. Men just don't come forward to talk about being abused by their life.
And I want to thank you because it takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
As I'm sitting here watching you, I can feel your pain, trying to release it and let us even hear it.
Yeah.
And I know how painful it was the first go around when you told it as well.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it because, again, we hear about the women all the time, but we don't hear about you guys. And you guys go pretty much the same way you do. I've had some questions about, well, how can a man go through domestic violence? Is he truly a man if he went through domestic violence? And I go into aspect of morals. Some men are taught they're not supposed to hit women, and for whatever reason they won't. So they feel the blunts and blows like we do. And I'm glad that you are sharing your story so that people won't just think it's just us. It's not just us. So I appreciate it. But continue on.
Yeah, and it's like we're taught not to hit women, and we're taught not to call the police when we're being assaulted by
Correct.
So I remember.
In fact, you're actually looked at funny if you call the police and talk about domestic violence.
Jokes.
Like what? Excuse me. And they come in like,
big guy. You can take a hit. You can take a hit? Really? Okay. And the thing is, like when you married, at the time I didn't have kids with her, but it was just hard to leave, because you're there. I mean, you married. You're there, and you're trying to, work things out, but that one hit, and it was just like a domino effect. A lot of things that started happening after that. And it was time to go. I just couldn't do it because I didn't want to take so much where I retaliate, or and it was rough. I had to leave and move to Marietta just to get away. Just move to another area, and but it's just tough. And my it still affects my life right now because when I had surgery, that was my dominant eye. And now I'm in a position, it's okay to share, that now I have to go to the state patrol doctor's office to take eye exams so I can keep my driver's license and stuff. So so I have a team that's in another room, so they drive for me to the ward show and back here. And so, it's just hard. I still have my license, but the doctors say they recommend that I don't drive. And it's tough, but I still grind. I still make it happen, though. God will find a way for me.
What makes it hard too is you're so in love with that person.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
You truly love that person.
Yeah.
And then, it's almost like you're stuck because you still love the person that you met, the person that you committed yourself to.
Yeah.
Even though the person that's abusing you isn't that person, you're just staying because you know that other person is still in there.
Yes.
And you're waiting for them to come out.
Yeah.
When in reality, you were manipulated.
Yes.
It was
From
always
the
Yes.
beginning.
They were
Yes.
not you, but they, I'm going to say they because we know there are men and women,
Yeah.
they were always the abusers.
Right,
They just
right.
manipulated you.
Right.
So
And like
looking
me,
back,
the same way. I married my high school sweetheart.
wow.
So I knew his family. I knew everything about his family. We were close, and I graduated with his sisters. I mean, it was just, It was and then to be in a marriage, I forgot who I was.
Yeah.
You know,
That happens a lot.
I didn't
You
recognize
lose
who
your
I
identity.
was. Right.
Yes.
I didn't recognize who I was. And
Yes.
I remember just being on another radio show just not too shortly ago. And they asked me a question at the end. They were like, well, what was your breaking point? I was like, my breaking point to get out of that marriage was when I had to fight in my own house.
Right.
I had to fight. So that was it for me.
Okay, what was your breaking point?
In my first relationship, it was the last time that we had a physical altercation, and he stomped me on the ground like I was nothing.
Wow.
I could hear my grandmother saying, you know, you don't kick a dog, you keep your feet on the floor. And, you know, she used some other words with that. She said,
We know how
but
grandma-
yeah, you know, I
Yes.
had an old school grandmama, so
I'm
she
that
used some
grandma
other
now.
words with that, and I could hear her talking to me, and the spirit was so real in that moment. It was one tear rolling down my face, and I'm looking up at this person, and I don't see nothing but evil. And, you know, I'm just like, at that point, when I didn't become equivalent to a four-legged animal, it was time to go. And I
Yes.
said, Lord, if you let me, because I thought I was going to die that night.
Right.
And I had never been afraid of him, because, see, if he had known the old me, he'd have never tried me. But you don't know you've changed until you're able to walk away from some things that you weren't normally able to walk away
Correct.
from.
Correct.
So I didn't want to be that girl. I wanted to be who I had become.
Right.
So it's a lot. I let a lot of stuff slide. And I wasn't getting thrown through the wall every single day, but there were multiple physical altercations within this 6.5-year run. And that
Wow.
night,
Wait,
I
wait,
thought
whoa,
I was
whoa,
gonna
whoa.
die.
Back up. You said how many years?
6.5 years. Oh,
Wow.
yeah. I married him. I had another child. So, yeah. So that night, I thought I wasn't going to see my kids anymore. And for me, being in my children's life, raising my kids, because I come from no mother, no father. My grandmother raised me. So that meant everything to me. So, you know, it was like, Lord, if you let me make it out of here tonight, I'll leave.
That's a blessing. That's a blessing. Now I want to go back into you of telling what happened to your daughter.
So when she came, her name was Natasha, what we call Natashi. So when Tashi knocked on the door,
Mike.
and,
Mike.
Oh, I apologize. So when Tashi knocked on that door and she came in and you know we was fellowshipping and I was just so excited. I burnt the dinner and I'm a good cook too. I mean I was just so excited to see my baby. Oh, it was like the prodigal daughter coming home, right? And we just had a good time fellowshipping and everything. And we even the most the Bible says count it all joy. Mm-hmm. The most sweetest thing that I can take away from this whole thing is that she said, Mommy, let me ask you something. Because I was a young mother. I had her at 16. And I said, so she asked me, she says, when we die, you know, do we follow Jesus? And I said, no, she said, do we follow Muhammad? I said, no. I said, we Christians. It's Jesus, honey. That's how you get to heaven. It's Jesus, right? And so she's like, really? And because the young man was Muslim, right? So she says, so I told her, I said, no, it's Jesus. Jesus all the way. That's the only way you can get to the Father. So she said, I said, you know this, right? And she says, yeah, but you know. I said, well, ain't no time like the present. I can usher you back on into the fold. Right. And
Yes.
that's what we did, right? Me and my ex, we ushered her right back into the kingdom. And after it was said and done, we said the sinner's prayer. We did all of that. And, oh, thank you, hallelujah. We closed it in Jesus' name. Mm-hmm. Good. She says, Mommy, so I took a Benadryl because she had like a dog. She had like a little jockey running around and made me, you know, allergic to him. So I took a Benadryl and it makes me very sleepy. So I kept hearing the front door open and close. And I said to her, I said, hey, what are you doing? I mustered the energy to get up. I said, what are you doing? She goes, I'm just going to go to the bodega, a little store. So I'm going to go there and I'll be right back. And I said, look, come on in. You know, we got a lot to do tomorrow. We got to go down, get some, you know, get the restraining order. We're going to do the domestic violence. We got to get your ticket because I was going to send her to Florida to my brother's. And so we got to do a lot of stuff. She goes, okay. And that was my very last time seeing her. Wow. It was like, you know, you women all have babies. You know how it is when the baby's descending. And you feel that whoosh. Mm-hmm. When we looked at each other for that split 10 seconds or so, that same descending feeling, now it went the other way. It came out of my spirit and whew, and it went out. And it paralyzed both of us for a quick second. And I couldn't explain. I couldn't talk about it. And it silenced me for a bit. and I couldn't explain it. So she went out to this store, and then I looked at the time. It was 5:36
In the morning?
In the morning, a.m.
Okay.
So I said, let me lay down, and I laid down, and that, like I said, that Benadryl knocked me out.
Yeah.
So that morning, I woke up to the phone ringing, and it was my ex calling and saying, "Hey, go see if Tosh is in the room." I said, "She's in there. She's there." And come to find out, she wasn't in the house. She left and never came back. And it was a phone call that went through this, like how the phone chain, this person called, that person called.
Mm-hmm.
So when he called me, he said, go look, go check, just check and see if she's in the house. And I looked, I went through the house, I said, she's not here. I said, oh gosh. So now he says, call over there to the house. So I called over there, no answer, no ring, because that's when call ID was really big. So I guess they seen my name. It was like, we're not picking up. And so I had my girlfriend call, and when she called, the brother picked up. And the brother said, she's dead. No, she asked for it. He says, can I speak to Tashi? And he said, she's dead. And I was like, wow. I said, wait a minute. I said, did you hear what he said? And she says, yeah. And I said, no, Krisha. I said, tell me, what did he say? She says, Jay, he said what you think he said. And I said, wow. So I called my brother Barry, who's a police officer, and I called him. I said, hey, can you do some research and find out, what happened over there so he did the research, and when he called back, that's when he said, sis, you home? Where you at? What's going on? Who hit you? Where the baby at? I said, no, don't talk all that talk to me. And I knew something was going on. But when the detective came, he did tell me that that she was gone. She was at the morgue. And it was just not real to me.
Wow.
But what he wound up doing was they went back to the mother's house, and the mother said, well, that's just a long in and out story. But what he wound up doing, he had turned the music up really, really loud. He hacked her hair. He hacked her hair off, and he turned the music up really, really loud. And he stabbed her repeatedly, like over 50-something
my
times.
God.
Over 50-something times, but she was tough. They said, the examiner said, no, that didn't kill her. Wow. She was tough. She was fighting back. What killed her was he hit her with a weight, like a lifting weight, for exercising. He hit her right in the back of the head, and that's what actually killed her instantly. So, yeah, so, ooh, y'all.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Because I know there's a young lady that's watching right now that went through a similar situation. And I've had the pleasure of talking to her several times. And I'm grateful. And I actually told her right before we came on to please tune in, because I wanted her to hear your story. In particular because she has small kids, and this could have happened to her. And I wanted to let everybody hear this story, because while you're sitting at home thinking about, I'm going to stay here and try to make it work, tomorrow is not promised to you on no form of fashion. And that's just, even in the real world of, you're not going through domestic violence. Nowadays you hear, and you turn the TV, and you hear all the time about random gunfire. So to add to this mix and that as well, it's not promised. And I wanted her to hear this because she did, in fact, leave her husband. And she's staying with relatives right now. And I'm very grateful that she got the strength for her children, for herself. And she realized that I am somebody. I am enough. And that's something that she truly felt like with him, with dealing in a situation, that she wasn't enough for him. But I'm glad. I wanted her to hear your story. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing your daughter's story, because that's what's needed. Kay, I know this is hurting you. I can hear it.
I have a 23-year-old daughter, so the thought of it.
We have to be intentional of finding out what's really going on. Like a lot of people say, oh, I don't. And I was that type of mother where I'm like, okay, you tell me, I'm going on your word. Like my word is bond back in the day. I'm going on your word. So if you tell me one thing, I'm gonna believe you. I'm not gonna be trying to snoop and stuff. But I'm telling you, parents, y'all better snoop. You have to.
Yes.
You gotta kick the door in. You gotta just by any means necessary.
I don't think parents should snoop. I think we should build that rapport with
Yes,
your child.
That's better.
Correct.
And
That's
I
better.
think we should set. I have a daughter, so I think we should set the tone with what if this person do this, if it give this does he grab you aggressively, do
That
you
open
say things
communication.
harshly?
Correct.
These are signs, you know. And then if you say something so harsh that he hurt your feelings and make you cry, and then apologize for it. I would say this. I have this saying: if you do it once, you do it twice. If you do it 3 times, it could cost your life. So just be aware and set this, the bond with your child to say, hey, if anything happens in these situations, call me. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to help you, and just try to have that open dialogue with them.
Yeah. So I definitely talk to my children. I have 3. I have a heap of kids, y'all. But I have 3, a son and 2 daughters, 28, 26, and 22. And I have 2 granddaughters who are 9 and 5. And I talk to them, even my children, because we still see them as our children, but they're adults. And when I was my youngest daughter age, I was going through domestic violence. And I talked to them real.
Yes, you have.
Raw.
Yeah, you have to.
And even when they were younger, when they were teenagers and they got old enough to understand, sex and different things, I explained things to them. It's funny because one of my nieces, I call her my daughter too because she's in the age group as my daughters, and when they would go to a little teen party, I said, if somebody touch your butt, you punch him in the face. And so my oldest daughter said, Mama, right in the middle of the party, she said, my aunt said if you touch my butt to punch you, and she turned around, the music stopped. I said, that's what she was supposed. I said, well, I meant to tell you, call me too, because I don't want, but these are things that I would tell them, to learn to protect themselves. But like I said, like now, like I tell people my daughters are my best friends. We talk about any and everything. Some parents are afraid to talk to their children.
Yes.
Because they're afraid of what they're going to hear.
Yes.
I want to hear it, and I'm not going to degrade you. I tell my children all the time, there's not a whole lot you can do that I haven't done.
Right.
Correct.
Or heard
Exactly.
about at my age. You can't surprise me.
Nothing new on this side.
Right, and I say, even if you tell me something that makes me mad, doesn't mean I don't love you, or doesn't mean that I see you any different. It'll make me mad because I know I taught you better, but it's still a conversation.
Right.
I'm not going to judge you. And their friends feel like they can talk to me as well. You just have to be able to communicate. And I learned that from growing up not having anyone to talk to. I knew that my children weren't going to go through what I went through, and couldn't nobody change that but me.
That's true. I'm a firm advocate about making sure we start teaching our children at a very young age about the do's and don'ts of life. Kay, did you start off with yours at a very young age since you had been through this?
Yes, I was a young mother. I had my daughter at 16. And just very close, just talk to them about everything. I mean, I even talk to my boys about everything. My boys even talk to me. So, I mean, I want to know. My son tried to hide that he was smoking weed. And I was like, you high? And he was like, no. I said, boy, I'm your mom. I know when you lying.
Right.
You high as a kite. I said, what you doing that for? I said, well, I
Trying to fit in with the
smoke some
crowd.
weed too. I tried to set an example for y'all, and y'all getting high.
Right.
But just I know my kids.
Yeah.
Can't lie to me.
Yeah.
You're supposed to. What advice, graded? I know your kids are rather young. Are you giving your daughter?
Well, she's just 11 years old.
that's time.
We just do the what if.
And trust me, at that tender age of 11, they're watching you. So definitely right. They are walking, talking sponges, literally. And they watch how you interact with their mother. They watch the tone that you have with them. They watch everything, because believe it or not, this is the molding stage for them. So what they see, they tend to emulate, and that's what they're going to do. So if you're not giving their undivided attention, then they start seeking it somewhere else. That I'm very strong, and I even thank God my husband is here in the studio today, that he spends daughter daddy time with her and take her out, and it's just them two. And I want her to see that, because in what I look at it as, I want you to think that no one is going to treat you any kind of way. They got to at
Right.
least meet the standards of what your dad has already put
Right.
you through since you were little.
Yes.
So what about you?
She observed how I treat her mom and how we talk. We don't argue. We always sit down and discuss. And when we're doing our daddy time, we go roller skating. That's our bonding. Or just driving to the store around the city, and then we just talk. She did have like a little boy that she liked, whatever like that. So it was kind of like, who's this boy? But my wife told me, no, you can't do that. You have to okay. So I
Have
went along
patience.
with it, and I just said, as long as he treat you like how I treat your mother, then he's okay.
Good.
But when he start being aggressive and mean to you, then hey, come talk to me if you have any questions. Talk to me about whatever. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to shame you because I know how it is as a child growing up. Being around.
Okay, so I want everyone on this show to leave one word of encouragement with our audience. And then I'm going to end it with each and every last one of you telling them how they can find you. So I want to start with Kay first.
My words of encouragement is just to keep showing up for life. Don't
Yes.
keep growing, glowing, and showing up. Even when it looks bad, you have the strength to carry on. You can do it by yourself. You don't have to have anybody else. God is all you need.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, and you can find me. You ready for that part?
Yes.
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn too, but I'm not on there. But I'm on there.
Me too.
And Keanu Fay Westar. It's Keanu Fay Westar across the board. Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Tell me about your nonprofit.
My nonprofit is for individuals and families affected by domestic violence. It's called Love Yana Outreach. And we don't have all those billboards up anymore, but we do have 40 more going up next year, 2020.
That's what I'm talking about. Miss Beverly.
All right, my thing would be, you are more than let me go back. You are not just a victim, and you're more than a survivor. A lot of us get lost in the pain, the fear, and the shame of going through domestic violence that we forget who we are. And I don't always want to be labeled as someone that just went through domestic violence. I'm proud to be a survivor because many of us didn't make it, but I'm so much more than that. There's more to me than that. I feel like that was something given to me out of my control. Someone decided that they wanted to abuse me. So we are all not just victims and more than survivors.
And how can we find you?
I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. Beverly N. Vercher, Vercher. I also have my own lash business, Clash Beauty Brand, and I've started a magazine next month, Your City Magazine, and it's across the board as well.
Phenomenal.
Thank you.
Next, Miss J.
Whoa, my words of wisdom for you is that you're more than enough.
Hold your mic up.
You're more than enough, and you have to find that one person. If you didn't give your life to Christ, you can always go there if you did. However, if you have that one, you got to find that one main person that you can talk to and not feel like they're going to judge you or anything like that. Turn the chatter off in your head, those self-doubts like, people going to judge me and all this other stuff. It's not true, because if my daughter would have just said, Mommy, I need help, listen, she would be here today. And my legacy through her will be, I would have grandbabies and stuff like that, and that's been stopped. So just talk to someone that you really, really trust. You can find me at J on Facebook, Jae is J, my first name. Wilson is my last name, Wilson. I have I don't have everything across the board, but find me there and we can go. My telephone number is there as well. And and I'm here to talk. I'm coming out with a book soon. And it's time, because it's been 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And that book it's just been festering and just building. Even the nonprofit is building, so I see it. One of the things is purple nails, so we're gonna definitely, that has a play on that. But yeah, you can find me there on Facebook, J Wilson. Okay.
All right.
Hi, I think my word for today is to let anyone or everyone know that's going through any domestic violence is that to know that you're worthy.
Yes.
know that you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and God created you for a purpose. He has a plan for your life. Don't let anyone interfere with that plan. And it's a divine plan. So just know that you're loved. Know that God loves you most of all. And when you take hold of that, then there's nobody can snatch you out of his hands. And I can be reached Facebook, Tamela Coleman, Instagram, I am _ Tamela Coleman. Also Tamela Books at yolasite.com, and Amazon. You can reach me on Amazon Books as well. And also, you can also listen to my show every Thursday, which I actually have testimonials and deliverance stories about those have come through domestic violence, those that have come through cancer and deliverance. God is truly a faithful God, and he can bring anybody out. We just have to trust him and continue to believe.
And last but not least, Grady.
Hey. Well, also, don't blame yourself. Don't say it's your fault. Or don't say this person just loved me. If you love yourself, you won't hurt yourself. So you must protect yourself. So do like the old folks say down at the church, you better run. Just run as fast as you can, get away,
Yes.
and start a new day. You can find me at DJ Grady Baby Radio on Facebook, Grady Taylor on Facebook. My website, djgradybaby.com. I'm out there, so just inbox me, text me, whatever.
Well, again, you guys, this is the end of our show. I do thank you for joining us on the second domestic violence show that we have had. I'm quite sure we will have another one in 2020. In fact, I can guarantee it. We will have another one 2020. I want to thank everyone for coming out and sharing with our audience your personal stories. As you guys know, they did share all their vital information. So if you want to hear more depth about their stories, please feel free to rewind and listen to their information again. I want to say one last thing for me. Don't let dream killers kill your dreams. Always pursue your dreams no matter what. So I want to encourage those who are going through this now. Find the strength. Find someone that you can talk to. Find that inner strength that you need to come out of this situation. Before we leave, we're going to post again the numbers if you want to receive help. We're going to post the numbers. I want to thank our audience and everyone that is a part of the Straight Grown Talk team. Thank you. Mwah. Goodbye.
Family Violence in Georgia, shelters 800-334-2836, National Domestic Violence Hotline 512-453-8117.